feel like your higher self or spirit is trying to pressure you to do things for the collective or with your spiritual gifts or understandings, well, I'm going to tell you about a multidimensional chakra scan that I did on a client. So this might help you in your life as well. When I went into this person's chakras, a different timeline version of them came forward, and I was seeing their life played out, and they were a very soft, divine, feminine, just flowy, easygoing energy in that timeline. And then something kind of traumatic happened to them that was, a bit like persecution, oppression, kind of like some violent stuff happening. And that timeline version decided, I'm never going to let this happen to me or anybody else ever again. And they became like this very intense, like warrior type of energy, arsenal energy, but like in a good way, like standing up for people and standing up for self. And then they actually reincarnated several times with that warrior type of energy, arsenal energy. And this incarnation, this soul contract, this person has decided to be more in feminine energy as far as like receiving and flowy and just helping people in different contexts. And I was explaining to that timeline, I said, they're not doing that work in this one, okay? Because you can be a warrior in a lot of different ways. You can be a warrior of peace. You can be a warrior of joy. You could be a warrior of laughter. You're not always meant to be like that arsenal energy. And I said, that's great though. Like, I love all that you are doing in your timeline. And there's so many people out there that's such a beautiful vibration and frequency that they hold, because they are helping like break down these paradigms and, just oppressive systems. But if you are a being that has been that type of being for a really long time, that takes a lot of energy. And sometimes you want to have a different experience and a different incarnation, and that is okay. And I was explaining to this client that sometimes there's a lot of shame and guilt, and you're like, well, I need to do this, and I need to do that, or I feel like spirit's trying to get me to do this and that. And I was explaining that's actually that other timeline, or those other timelines that were trying to mentor and guide you and say, you gotta be this type of warrior. This is how we've always been. and I was explaining, like, that's where you have to break away from the pack and say, I came in with a specific soul contract and I'm going to do it how I want to do it, because this is my experience and I can help in the way that I want to help. I'm going to share some of my own personal experience with that. And so this might be a little bit triggering before we get into this. So if you're like in a sensitive place, maybe not listen to the last bit of this, okay? Just like a warning beforehand. So I have also felt that way in my life, because I have also had like warrior timelines of helping with breaking down oppressive systems. And something in this incarnation, I was like, wow, I really want to help with child trafficking, like in this actual timeline, because that really holds a special place in my heart, because I just think it's like horrible, like what is happening in those areas. And something inside of me though is saying, like, that's not meant for us. Like there are so many people that are doing that and just doing an incredible job, and maybe we can support in another way, but we can't put ourselves like on the front lines of that, because I experience a lot of trauma in childhood and things, and if I were to like be on the front lines of that, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do, because it would send me into like a very deep depressive state, just to be frank, right? And I've always worked with children in some type of capacity. I used to be a program manager at a nonprofit. I used to be a daycare teacher. I've done nannying, like lots of different things. And I had to have a sit down conversation with these different timeline versions of me. And I'm saying, I am an inner child healer in this incarnation. I help break inner children out of their matrices and out of the imprisonment that they have been in within themselves. I said, because that actually spawns the people that do those nasty, evil things. Because they, probably horrible things have happened. And sometimes people are just not good. Okay, not making excuses for people. But if you have a bunch of people that have been victims of generational trauma and societal trauma and oppression and persecution, and all of these people are growing up these ways. I said, there's so many people that have wounded inner children within them, and that's perpetuating so many like things going awry and wrong in society. And I said, what if I can help people get out of that within themselves? I said, that to me is just as important work as doing this type of work over here. That's what I do now. I help healers who are on the front lines of doing those things get ready to go into their arsenal type of energy and their warrior type of energy. But we've got to help those wounded inner children inside so they feel nice and strong and brave and courageous, and then they feel empowered. I mean, not even just people with the arsenal or warrior energy, just like people's inner children in general. And I said, that is what is in resonance with me in this incarnation, and that is totally okay, because there's no equating this work is better than that work. But I was still holding a lot of shame and guilt, because I was thinking like, I need to be out there on the front lines, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that. But that was me like equating one being, you know, more beneficial than the other. And that's actually what I was explaining to this client's timeline version. I was sharing my experience and my story, and then all of a sudden those other versions with them were like, oh, like, not everybody has to do things in the specific way just because other people are doing it, even yourself, even timelines within yourself. And so I wanted to share that today. I know that was kind of like heavy, those topics that we were talking about, but I just felt like it was really relevant in a tangible example, because I see that a lot with empaths and light workers, and they're like, I feel like I'm not doing enough, or, you know, I'm more of like a love and light type of healer, not spiritual bypassing. Okay, but maybe you're like working in the angel realms and doing channeling, where there's other people out here doing like arsenal groundwork. And I'm like, y'all are doing beautiful work in your own capacities. And sometimes like people working in arsenal warrior energy, that's what like lights them up. That's what like really, you know, helps them feel energized and passionate and creative. Whereas somebody else who doesn't want to have that type of archetype in this incarnation is going to be so incredibly draining and taxing. We can see that with some people who like love working in psychology and social work, and it just makes them so happy and bright. And then there's other people that are like, this is so taxing on me. Right? So you gotta fit in where you fit in, okay? And do the type of work that you want to do, because all around it's healing work, and there are going to be other people in the collective populace who are specifically coming in to hold that type of architectural structure. So you gotta let go of some of that shame and guilt, okay? So anyway, I hope this helps. If you would like a multidimensional chakra scan so you can kind of figure out some of these things within yourself, it's very different what comes through for everybody. It can be inner child healing, it can be trauma awareness, spiritual gift activations, DNA activations. It can be things that you need to focus on for your physical human healing. It depends on where you're at on your journey. So I never like to say like, hey, these are the things that are going to come through. It's very different for everybody. So if you'd like one, you can go to my profile and click there under multidimensional chakra scans, or you can check the comments or the description box here below.